Hi, everybody. This is Kurt Shaver, Chief Sales Officer with Vengreso, and we're doing another SAP success story talking about social selling. Today, I've got Francesco Mondo joining us. Hi, Francesco.
Hi there, Kurt. Hi, everybody.
So, listen, we're going to be talking about some of his experiences with social selling. So, Francesco, why don't we get started? Introduce yourself. Tell us what group. I know there's so many groups with SAP, so tell us what group and a little bit about your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Francesco Mondo. I'm a cloud ERP specialist for the product business by design. I sit in the Dublin office in Ireland, and I'm part of the commercial sales organization for EMEA.
Okay. And how long have you been with SAP?
I've been with SAP for about 18 months now. I started with a product called SAP Anywhere, and then in January of 2017, moved over to SAP Business by Design.
Gotcha. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your social selling journey. When would you say that you first got introduced or, started to adopt some social selling practices?
So I adopted social selling when I started out in sales. I was a business development manager, essentially, out there generating leads on the phone. And, we got some sales Navigator licenses. I think this was back in about 2015 when it was quite new to a lot of organizations.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just really started from there using LinkedIn to, start posting, start messaging people. But really mostly using it as, a database of contacts to go and outreach to.
So was that function primarily lead generation, or did you carry the wholesale from the initial lead generation all the way through to the close in that role?
No, so it was mainly it was pure lead generation. So just reaching out to brand new customers, net new names, introducing yourself and trying to secure meetings. That was the overall aim there, was to get meetings, get appointments, and then pass those leads onto some of the senior salespeople in the organization.
Yep. And when you first started using it, so you went into the company, they sort of had Sales Navigator. Was that something that you say everyone quickly embraced, or, did people have some, because it's a new technique, did people sort of have some maybe misconceptions, or, was there any pushback that you heard from folks, or did everybody jump right in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with anything new, people are really anxious about new things.
Right.
I didn't really feel like that. The organization was quite old school, and I think a lot of organizations still are, and a little bit anxious about using those technologies. So, they were more focused on cold calling and on traditional means of getting leads, whereas I wanted to go and experiment and try social selling. And, I did still have a lot of misconceptions about it. I thought that it was a bit of a fad potentially, that it, might fizzle out, that maybe not many people use LinkedIn. So it wouldn't be an effective way to find people and message people and get on their radar. But I think, after a couple of months using it, it really became sort of the center of everything else that I did, whether it was a means to an end or just part of the journey of securing leads and getting those introductions.
Well, now in your current role, so who are your ideal target prospects, right? Who are you targeting?
My prospects, I guess, in terms of companies would be, in the SME mid-market. So companies up to around 1,500 employees. In terms of personas within those companies, we're generally looking at CFO, possibly the financial controller, CEOs in some cases, and also the IT directors. So essentially, your C-level decision makers, predominantly in finance.
Okay. Well, now that you've got almost a couple of years of Sales Navigator experience under your belt, tell us a little bit about how you're using it now, and maybe some of the finer points or things maybe some of your colleagues aren't using right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm using all the standard stuff. In-mails are obviously really powerful, really nice, direct way to get in touch with someone. I do use the lead tracking functionality to just see what different people are liking and to monitor job changes. And the power plays within organizations. I guess where things really developed for me is where I've started to use third-party plugins and using LinkedIn as part of the rest of the digital strategy.
Yep.
So what I started to do is use a few plugins. For example, there's one called Get Prospect, there's Hunter, which essentially extracts information from LinkedIn and puts it into your CRM or into Excel spreadsheets, whatever you want to use.
Mm-hmm.
And you can then leverage that data for email campaigns and to really track different activities, whether it's calling or whether it's sending emails or using different means. And another area that I've then used that sort of technique is to feed that back into connecting with people within target organizations and then content marketing those people once they've connected, which I'm using through the Grapevine tool.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the content marketing piece. That piece of it, I often say there's kind of two halves of social selling, right? So there's the outbound prospecting part, which is mostly what we've been talking about here. That's the one that's very database centric, and it's about people, and it's about pulling contact information, all those types of things that are traditional, very sales activities. And then the other part of it is this content piece, right? The idea of sharing valuable content or possibly going in and just engaging with what a prospect has said. But that's sort of the social networking, almost kind of a marketing part of it, where you're providing that value and showcasing your expertise. So talk a little bit about how you use the content part of social, Francesco.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in terms of a strategy, I think content is, about nurturing leads and about informing and educating leads, about being seen as a trusted advisor, as it's called.
Right.
So all the content I create or that I post, that is the strategy, is to inform people. So a few examples of that would be an article that I wrote recently, which was around SAP being too expensive for small and medium organizations.
That's the one. I think I saw it on your profile, right? And you had somebody, it says wrong across the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I'd go for a bit of impact.
Sure, right. Shock factor.
Yeah. Oh my God, an SAP guy said it's too expensive. I thought that would be really effective.
Yeah.
And it was, and I got about 150 likes, just as many shares on that article. Reached about 5,000 people globally. You click on the analytics, there's, all different countries, companies, and all different
it shows you companies, it shows you titles, and it shows you locations of where those views have come from.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a nice one, which I've kind of got pinned on my profile, and obviously has naturally reached lots of different people through that post.
So that's really interesting. I mean, working for obviously such a large company as SAP, but this was original content that you wrote, right, in the form of a long form blog-like post on LinkedIn. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So it was fairly short. I think it was about 500 words. My idea was to go for something short, impactful. I've got a few videos in there, so it's got a multimedia element to it.
Yeah. So do you guys get any, as an individual producer, do you get any coaching or guidance or anything along the lines of creating original content like you did? Or was this just something that you conjured up?
It was a bit of both, really. We're encouraged to go and write posts, to go and write articles. I studied English at university. I've always been a bit of a writing and reading buff. So.
Oh, good. You're putting that education to work. That's fantastic.
All those student debts were worth it, Kurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just sort of one of my natural strengths. So I thought, let's go and utilize it on LinkedIn.
Yeah. That's great. Well, continued success on that. Well, the other thing I want to ask you, of course, everybody always likes to hear specific stories, Francesco. And in our kind of pre-interview, you shared with me a really interesting one. It's one of the best ones I've heard, actually, in terms of just sort of the serendipity of LinkedIn giving you some insight. So can you tell us that story that you shared with me earlier?
Yes, I think I know the one you're talking about. So, in fact, yesterday morning I had the meeting. And so what happened was I was leading a campaign into the life sciences vertical to sell ERP, cloud ERP solutions. You know, I drew up a huge list of companies that I wanted to go out there and contact. As I previously said, I extracted all that information from LinkedIn, started sending out email campaigns, you know, saving leads to Sales Navigator, and, you know, doing a bit of research on the prospects that I was going to go out to talk to. I ended up, you know, tracking one of my leads who was the head of IT at a really fast-growing VC-backed life sciences company based out in Cambridge. They've got hundreds of £1 million of investment. And I sent him was tracking him on Sales Navigator, saw that he'd had a job change, he'd been promoted within the IT team to be leading it. I said, hey, you know, congratulations on the job promotion. I also see your acquisitions recently. We've helped companies in that situation. Let me know if you'd ever like to talk about.
Right, because they're going to have to integrate systems, right?
Exactly, precisely. Yes. So there's a few things there that were interesting: the promotion and also the acquisition, which I saw on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so that was your social listening skill.
That's right. Yeah, two ears, one mouth. So I messaged him. A few days later, I got a message back. He sort of said, you know, we potentially would be interested in chatting. We're probably going to continue with our existing vendor. Let me know if you'd like to have a coffee at some point. So I thought, okay, you know, it's kind of a coldish lead. At the same time, I was leading the campaign into the life sciences vertical, was emailing, calling. Based on some email analytics, I made a call to the director of operations at another growing life sciences startup. As I picked up the phone, I brought up Sales Navigator and saw that this director of operations had also previously been working at the company that I'd reached out to, that I talked about just then. Mm-hmm. So I brought that up in conversation. I said, hey, you know, I've just been speaking to the head of IT over here. We've been doing some work across the life sciences industry. I'm probably going to go for a coffee with him. So she says to me, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, they had a failed implementation of an ERP system. It's caused loads of internal chaos. You know, they definitely need some help.
Yeah.
So I took that information on board. That one didn't really go anywhere. I had the meeting yesterday with the first prospect that I mentioned, where he told us all about the failed implementation, about the possibility of moving on to one single platform, and from moving from Microsoft to SAP. So that's a nice example of how Sales Navigator and a bit of social listening and profiling can really make the difference.
Yeah, well, that was a very good pickup on your part. Obviously, you know, to pull up the profile before the call, and you did your little research, and then you discovered that common company between there, and then you got some really very insightful sort of insider information from somebody that used to work there, which is a great sales technique. But it's really only that LinkedIn where you're going to be able to see that. And in fact, I think Sales Navigator even. I mean, you might be giving me a great idea, and maybe other people, you know, just for a sales prospecting and researching strategy, because LinkedIn Sales Navigator does have that field where you can actually look up people in their past companies. And I always used to wonder, what am I going to use that for? Past companies. I want to know where they are now. But you just gave me a great example of how it could be useful for somebody giving you information about their past company, because many times they feel freer, obviously, to share information like that, right? You might not have an internal person tell you about the failed ERP implementation, but if they're out the door, might be a little easier. So that's that was a great story. I really enjoyed hearing that one. Well, Francesco, let's kind of wrap up with, I know you've been using it a lot of different ways. You're using it on the prospecting side. You're pulling the lists out of it. You're doing the content piece. You just had a great research example there to get started and find out a little bit more about a new prospect. Can you offer your colleagues any tip or any advice, something that you think maybe either works particularly well, or something that you think might be overlooked in terms of a tip or a tactic that you would just want to kind of leave people with?
I guess, you know, playing around with Sales Navigator with the lead builder that's kind of the center of everything. That allows you to go and drill into a specific demographic of prospects.
Yep.
And the kind of things I'll be thinking about is, what kind of company have we sold to in the past? What kind of characteristics can I draw from those companies? And what can I then input into Sales Navigator to give me a batch of leads that, are potentially going to be hot or have certain characteristics that, could draw them towards your product or could draw them towards change. So yeah, go and experiment with Lead Builder would be my number one recommendation.
All right, great. Francesco Mondo, SAP, thanks so much for sharing your insights here on the Social Selling Success session. And we will look forward to hearing great stories from you in the future.
That's great.
Thanks.
Thanks.